Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Del Vecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing, and the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Matt, clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss.
Corrie, we're going to be talking about Teresa Dellar, and you hear Teresa Dellar, you automatically think of palliative care, which is such a sensitive topic. Not only is it difficult for the individual, but in many cases it's far more difficult on the family. And Teresa just took a real pioneer when it came to palliative care.
There's no question that her name is synonymous with palliative care, and the work she did will be forever remembered. Mm-hmm. I have to say, I am doing this interview and this discussion with a very heavy heart, because Teresa was not only a respected colleague, but she was a friend. And Teresa fought hard as she battled lymphoma. There's no one in this community that doesn't use words such as compassionate, generous, visionary, pioneer, loving, witty. The list goes on and on about the most special adjectives that can describe this woman. Therefore, in fact, I am very pleased that we have chosen to honor Teresa, not only for who she is, but for what she created for Montrealers and Canada and the entire world about how we can better deal with palliative care.
Yeah, of course, she really did take it to a whole new level. What was something that used to be kept quiet while families suffered in silence became more of a celebration of life filled with respect, dignity, and peace for both the individual and their loved ones. Her obituary, as many saw this week, said it so well. Heaven gained an angel that had already earned her wings on earth. How appropriate. You know, we had Teresa as a guest on our show back in October 2017, which was the 15th anniversary of the West Island Palliative Care residence. I'll never forget our pre-interview, which Teresa and I had actually at the residence about 2 weeks before the show, and she was so gracious, generous of her time, and so respectful to the families, the staff, and the many, many volunteers.
No question. We're actually going to play parts of that interview for our listeners today, and we're going to be taking a couple of calls from people that were very, very close to Teresa. So they'll be joining us soon, but first we're going to head out to our interview where we asked Teresa about how she defined palliative care.
Palliative care really is about improving the quality of life of our patients and their families, not just at the end of life, but also throughout their illness. So we've been really, really blessed with just having such a great number of staff that work with us.
So you touched on what is palliative care and what you do,
right.
But I think our listeners would probably benefit from understanding a little more about the support that you do offer to families and how you help the patients themselves.
I think the most important thing that we do is that when a patient comes through our doors with their families, the family is allowed once again to be a family member. They've often been caregivers. They've also often been the one who has been spending the days and nights with that person and being exhausted and overwhelmed. And when they walk through the doors, they can be a family member again. So they can be the wife, the husband, the child. And that's really important. So we do our very, very best to work with the families and the patients by offering support in many forms, not just physical management of symptoms, but emotional, spiritual, psychological, and it's very important that we give that service to both the patient and the families.
And that service she certainly does. Wonderful words from Teresa Dellar. We're going to head right to the lines, and we're going to hear from another interview a little later on the show, but we're going to hear from Laurie Morris. Laurie has been with the West Island Palliative Care residence since its birth almost 20 years ago. She was a founding board member, serving as treasurer, sat on the Valentine's Gala Committee for 18 years, chairing 7 of them. As their accountant, a CA by profession, Laurie is currently a member of the leadership team and serves on a number of other committees as well. Laurie, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being with us. Lori, you attended many meetings almost from day one. You saw behind the scenes about Teresa. Tell us a little bit about her.
Oh, well, Teresa was a true visionary. She was brilliant and inspiring. She was determined, but she was humble and warm and affectionate, and she was funny. She was so funny. She was also all about family, her own family that she adored beyond words. They were always part of the conversation, and her residents' family that included the patients, their families, the employees, the volunteers, the stakeholders, the donors. She went out of her way to connect with everyone, and it was genuine because she really cared about everyone. She befriended everyone in the truest sense of the word.
You know, you talk about family, and you're right. When I was doing that tour, everyone knew her. She knew pretty well everyone, and it really was a family. And talk about family, Lori, I think you have a wonderful story that you could tell about Teresa.
Yeah, our friendship did start 20 years ago, and it was in the summer of 99, and my daughter Steffi was asleep in her crib, and I was out in the backyard with the monitor and my 2-year-old son Ethan. I was weeding, and he was playing on his little 2-step slide when he fell awkwardly, and he hit his head on the ground. So I brought him in, but I wasn't sure if he was okay or not, so I called TC as my new friend and fellow mom. And while we were on the phone, Ethan ended up being sick to his stomach. And right away, TC said, "Hang up, call 911, I'm on my way." And sure enough, she was walking in the front door along with the first responders. And I went off in the ambulance with my son. And by the time my husband, Mark, got home to relieve her, she had cleaned up the mess, thrown in a load of laundry, looked after Steffi, changed her diaper, and even later that evening, the doorbell rang, and her wonderful husband, Gavin, had stopped by at her request just to make sure that we were all okay. She going above and beyond was just who she was.
Above and beyond isn't even doing it justice. Lori, such a wonderful story, and I guess give a real sense of who Teresa was all about. I know this wasn't easy for you to come on air to talk about a very good friend, but we want to thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt. The honor was mine over the past 20 years, so thank you.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you so much. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Matt with Matt Delvecchio, and we are honoring Teresa Dellar. We're going to head back to an interview we had with Teresa on the 15th anniversary of the West Island Palliative Care Residence back in October 2017. Teresa always spoke so highly of her team. She always had a way with words, talking about the delicate subject of death and dying. Here's how she so eloquently put it.
Yeah, we're very, very lucky that we have an incredible team. Our medical team is headed by Dr. Genevieve Richer, and tremendous amount of nurses that have been certified in palliative care, end-of-life nursing. We have social workers, art therapists, bereavement specialists and counselors that we follow families for a minimum of 1 year following a death. We have spiritual advisors. So it's really a holistic approach, and what we're really trying to again get through to so many people, and especially the government, is that dying is not a medical event. It's a social event. And so when you manage the symptoms, the physical symptoms, you have to work on the support and the care and taking care of the family and taking care of the person who they are. That's
Teresa Dellar that you just heard so eloquently putting about her views on death and dying. We're going to be heading out to traffic, but we're going to continue our tribute to Teresa Dellar, and we're going to hear from a dear friend of Teresa's and longtime supporter of the West Island Palliative Care residents, Yolande James, who will be coming up right after an update from the CJAD Traffic Center and Lauren Glazer.
Life Unrehearsed on CJAD 800. Brought to you by Marco Vendramini of IG Private Wealth Management. MarcoVendramini.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. I'm Corrie Matt with my co-host Matt Delvecchio, and we are honoring a unique and special woman, Teresa Dellar, the founder and co-founder and executive director of the West Island Palliative Care Residence, who died earlier this week after battling lymphoma. On the line, we have Yolande James. Yolande was a dear friend of Teresa's and a longtime supporter of the West Island Palliative Care Residence. Thanks for joining us today, Yolande.
Hello. thank you for having me, but also thank you for taking the time to pay tribute to such a phenomenal human being.
No question. I should have mentioned that Yolande is a former Quebec cabinet minister who continues to serve on the board of the residents. But I also know that you were a longtime friend of Teresa's. Can you please tell us about Teresa?
I knew you would ask me that question, and I think it's one of the hardest questions to answer because, as I'm sure others have told you or you have seen, she's obviously been a great friend, a leader, an inspiration, generous. But in the last few days, I guess, as the memories, play over 20 years of memories in my mind, the word compassion and heart are there all the time because that's what Teresa was. She was, forever will be the example of what it is to service to others. It was always about others. She was the example of what it means to move and breathe in service of something bigger than yourself. And she was able to do so much and really change the world because of that. So it's a big loss for a lot of people because she was just such a compassionate person, really supernatural in her ability to make things happen.
Supernatural. That's Yolande James we're talking to on Life Unrehearsed. In our tribute to Teresa Dellar, we hear such wonderful words all throughout the week and so many tributes, Yolande. However, what automatically puts a smile on everyone's face is when you ask about Teresa's sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
And you saw it firsthand, I think, many times.
Oh, my gosh. And some things I will never reveal.
We don't have a 7-second delay here, Yolande. So
you might want to put your hand on that delay button. It was in every situation. She was able to find humor, just her wit. She was really, really witty. And it just, because a lot of people who, especially in the early days, who are not familiar with palliative care, couldn't believe that I could be with the executive director, which was my friend, and be at the residence, and we would laugh all the time. And I just didn't get that. But that was Teresa, that she could demystify what was palliative care, what was the importance of living every day, and that's just who she was.
That's Yolande James. Yolande, thank you so much for taking a few minutes on this Sunday. We know this isn't easy for you at all, but we appreciate you coming on Life Unrehearsed.
I really, again, appreciate you taking the time to honor her.
All right. Thanks, Yolande.
Bye-bye.
That was Yolande James, ex-cabinet minister, taking a little time talking about Teresa. Now, Corrie, we're going to finish this off with you because you are also a personal friend of Teresa's. As a reminder to our listeners, Corrie is a social worker specializing in grief and loss. In fact, you wrote a book called Someone Died, Now What? It's actually a fantastic book, Corrie. It provides wonderful anecdotes and tips and advice for people who are mourning. And, well, Teresa actually endorsed the book. Tell us about this.
That's correct. So not only did Teresa endorse the book, Teresa came to the launch and spoke about it in support. This is a woman who is completely selfless. She completely supported everything that everyone did, but I'm going to talk personally. She supported everything that I did, so it was beyond the book, Someone Died, Now What? She supported and endorsed Camp Erin. One of the reasons I have Camp Erin and we got the rights was because she wrote a letter of support. And so this is a woman that is selfless beyond it and just was always there. Calls, connections, whoever, always looking for ways to support everyone.
Selfless and did so much for the community and for Canadians in general. Winner of the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012, Meritorious Service Cross in November of 2016. We got asked pre-show from a lot of people, please let us know about the funeral details, Corrie. So, the funeral for Teresa is on Tuesday, September 3rd at 2 2 p.m. at St. Patrick's Basilica, which is at 460 Running Levesque West. So we just wanted to get that out. So, Corrie, we have to wrap it up here. What do we have going on the show next week?
Next week on Life Unrehearsed, it's open house season for schools. How do you know how to choose a school? Join us to find out. And
we'll be talking about empty nesters. Did your child leave the nest too early, or is it that you can't wait to get them out of the house? That'll be next Sunday, where you're going to hear Life Unrehearsed every Sunday on CJD 800 at 4 p.m. And as we head out, we wish to extend our deepest sympathies to Teresa Dellar's family,